Josh coming on for the first time following a Tennessee football loss. A little different this week in Knoxville, but still a whole lot to play for.
A lot to play for. The game did not go how Tennessee wanted, quite the opposite, right, on Saturday. But the results right after went just how Tennessee fans hoped they would, with Clemson losing to Notre Dame and looking so awful that a one-loss Clemson team would surely be out of it. And then Bama going down. The fear was, what if Bama wins out, beats Georgia, and you have Alabama and Georgia take 2 spots in the playoff? Well, that is out of the equation now. So Tennessee still needs more help, and Tennessee obviously has to take care of business the rest of the way, but that would have been a prerequisite either way. Coming out of the Georgia game, fans were understandably disappointed, but just a few hours later, I think the spirits were lifted, and I sensed some of that on Monday.
Is Tennessee one of the best 4 teams in the country?
I think so. I think part of that is because of how good the offense is. It did not look good against Georgia, and that is something Tennessee will have to answer for if it gets to the college football playoff, because you're probably seeing Georgia again, and you'll see high-level competition in that playoff. But, Eric, when I go through the other teams that we're just talking about right now, teams that have a chance to get in, Ohio State, Michigan, TCU, Oregon, USC, those other teams that I look at, could they beat Tennessee on a neutral field? Of course. But could Tennessee beat them? I think the answer is of course as well. So I think Tennessee is in that mix. And then you take the resume that Tennessee has and put that with how good the offense has been overall this season, save for the Georgia game, then I think Tennessee is one of the 4 best teams. We'll see if the committee believes that's the case here in a few weeks, based on what other teams do, what do championships mean. All of that has to be answered. But in terms of the makeup of Tennessee's football team and what Tennessee has done over the course of this season, yes, I think Tennessee is one of the 4 best teams, or at least has a great case to say that.
Tennessee goes down to Athens and really just never got going. Took until the 4th quarter to score its first touchdown of the football game. The final score really does not look that bad. You lost by 2 touchdowns, but Tennessee, it got its tail whipped. I mean, no ifs, ands, and buts about it. A biggest surprise from that football game, kind of broke it down in a number of different areas. I think the defense played okay, but gave up 3 big chunk plays, and it all counts in football. So, you don't erase those, right?
Yeah.
But what biggest surprise? Which kind of your big takeaways from that football game?
Probably my biggest surprise was the offensive line and protection just not holding up at all against Georgia. And I thought there would be a bigger challenge than maybe a lot of people wanted to believe last week because of the sack numbers for Georgia. I still looked at Jalen Carter coming back and the talent they had up front and thought, you better be ready. But Tennessee did not look ready. And part of it may have been as the game went along that Georgia was able to kind of tee off. But look around the goal line, the protection that wasn't there enough. Jalen Carter was an absolute force. And Georgia heard all week probably, hey, Nolan Smith's gone. This team, they can't get to the quarterback. But I thought Tennessee would be better against that because of what we had seen against Alabama, which has a couple of elite pass rushers, and LSU. But they hadn't faced a player like Jalen Carter with what he is and how he's projected at the next level. And they didn't handle it well. False start penalties probably affected the offensive line as the game went along as well. I mean, we know that the crowd affected them, right? So that, and then to go with that would be just mistakes being made pre-snap. And as the game went along, the spot was on Saturday was too big for Tennessee. Doesn't mean that Tennessee can't handle Georgia and the pressure that they'll face if they see each other again. But no doubt, Tennessee was affected by Sanford Stadium. That was before the ball was snapped and certainly after it was snapped, and that surprised me.
Are you shocked they didn't run Hendon Hooker a little bit more? Because I feel like that's a big part of its game. You don't want him to do it all the time because you don't want him taking hits. But in games like Tennessee, Georgia, Tennessee, Florida, Tennessee, Alabama, you need Hendon Hooker to run the football to win the game. And there was very little of that. And I feel like at points in times, whenever he's sitting in the pocket and he's being selective, you just got to take off and go. I know that's not design, but I felt like Hendon's running was a non-factor, obviously, but it needed to be a big factor just to maybe get that offense in some type of rhythm.
Yeah, because running the ball in this offense is so important. There is no rhythm if there's no running game for Tennessee, unless you're playing such a weak opponent that you don't need it. But Georgia's not that. So, yeah, a little bit. Jabari Small's absence definitely hurt. And then no Hendon Hooker in that part of the game. we saw the effect on Tennessee's offense. And part of it may be you don't want him to take those hits as you're talking about, because they can come a little bit different from Georgia. Also, the ball can come out maybe if he takes a hit from the wrong guy in the wrong spot, and you have to protect the football. And when your quarterback's exposed, the ball potentially could be as well. Maybe that goes into it, but there's no doubt running the football is a must in this offense in those type games. The numbers back it up. What they want to do, shots they want to take down the field, play action opportunities are less likely to be there if there's no running game that Georgia or whichever opponent we're talking about has to trust. So they see each other again or in a big game later this season, I would think that we see a little bit more Hendon, because too often we've seen for the opposing team, hey, if you're trying to get a stop on that first down play and all of a sudden Hendon's able to pick up 3 yards, 5 yards, 7 yards, it just makes everything easier for Tennessee's offense. They get going tempo. There's that rhythm you're talking about, and Tennessee can take off from there. That was not there against Georgia.
Hey, let me ask you this. I took a beating earlier in the week because, I remember 2017, and no year is the same. I understand that. There's different circumstances. But one of the playoff scenarios is if LSU wins out and beats Georgia in the SEC championship game, LSU can be in the college football playoff as a 2-loss team. I don't think that will happen. I don't see LSU beating Georgia. But tell me that's a possibility, because I think that is, or am I completely off base here?
Yes, it's a possibility. Likely, I don't know. But that's part of it. I don't know. I don't think anybody knows, but I do know this in terms of the resume. Even with 2 losses, if LSU has beaten Alabama and has beaten Georgia and has gone through the SEC West the way that it would have done in this scenario, that's going to be impressive to the committee. I know Tennessee has the blowout head-to-head win over LSU in Baton Rouge, and that would work in Tennessee's favor. And Tennessee would have 1 loss versus LSU's 2nd loss. LSU's case would also be that, hey, that Florida State game is the first game of the season with a new head coach. We are not that team anymore, very clearly. And we lost on a blocked extra point to end the game, compared to Tennessee, which beat Pitt from the ACC.
That's also, sorry to cut you off, that's also Oregon's backing as well.
Yeah, that it was the very start of the season. So I don't know, but Auburn with the 2 losses, at the time, the thought was they have a chance to go to the playoff if they win that SEC title game. They just didn't. They lost to Georgia, and then Bama was able to get in. So I would not dismiss LSU as out of it, behind in the race for sure. But if they win out, that's going to be impressive to the committee, no doubt.
All right, 2 more quick ones. Hendon Hooker does for the Heisman for his chances, but Hendon did not light it up on Saturday. Neither did C.J. Stroud against Northwestern. Does Michigan have to beat Ohio State for Hendon Hooker to win the Heisman now?
I would say most likely.
Is Tennessee holding out faith for Michigan in terms of a Heisman trophy? That's just kind of funny to even think about.
I know. Everything can come full circle at some point.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe. My personal opinion, by the way, Eric, is that this race should be more wide open than it appears to be in conversation. There are a lot of quarterbacks, some running backs too, but it's so difficult to even get them any kind of love in a Heisman conversation anymore. But where numbers are really impressive, and in some cases more impressive, you could argue, elsewhere. I think May at North Carolina is interesting. Bo Nix has become interesting for Oregon, right? And they're a playoff contender out there in the Pac-12. But I thought over the last few weeks, it would be difficult for Hendon Hooker with the loss to beat out C.J. Stroud unbeaten. And I think that would probably prove to be true with where the odds are right now. And if Ohio State beats Michigan, it's likely that he has a good game and would get a ton of attention for that. If Michigan beats Ohio State and they both have 1 loss, I don't know. Maybe at that point it becomes more wide open. I thought this past weekend, Bryce Young had a chance to charge back up, but then Bama lost to LSU. So it's so driven by what the team result is. And then from there, you look at what the other players do. So if North Carolina wins out, if Oregon wins out, then it does become more interesting for May and for Nix. But right now, I still think it's Stroud versus Hendon and then others trying to play catch up. So yes, if you want Hendon to win the award, obviously he has to finish strong from a statistical standpoint. The team needs to win out, but you might need Michigan to help save the day for the Heisman.
So funny to even think about. Hey, shift gears here. Hoops as we are heading out the door. Tyreek Key, new kid on the block, Tennessee Tech. I don't know how many points they lost by 75, 42, 43, whatever it was. Tennessee basketball gets the season opening win. Tyreek Key, 17 points, 4 made 3-pointers. He looked really good. He looked good in the scrimmage against Gonzaga as well. He's going to be a big part of this Tennessee basketball team.
Salute to Vol Hoops on Twitter, noting that Tyreek was the key to victory in the opener. That is just as I would have written it up. So I applaud. And he's going to be a key to the season in all seriousness because of his scoring ability, his ability to shoot from the outside and play multiple roles within the offense with the basketball, away from the basketball. He's an older player, and that matters to me. Yeah, when we look at the potential of Tennessee, part of that is based on Josiah Jordan-James, a fourth-year player, Vescovy, a fourth-year player, Olivia Kumwa, fourth-year player. These guys are more experienced, talented for sure, and Key is talented, but more experienced, older guys to go along with other players who are still developing. We know Zakai will play an important role. Jonas Adu is going to be important. Meshack, I think, is going to play an expanded role as this season goes along. The minutes probably back that up. But bringing in Key was really important to replace Kennedy Chandler. They're not the same players. I'm not saying that. But they needed a guy who could play with the basketball or off the basketball. Remember, Kennedy would play off the ball a good amount last year. So picking him up and adding more shooting to the offense, I think was really important. And Key is a player that Tennessee fans, I think, are going to enjoy watching this year. Kind of, looks like an old school guy out there. And he probably arrived with a bit of a chip on his shoulder. He's gotten the opportunity now, but it took extra work for him to get it. And I think he wants to prove he belongs in the SEC.